Hey y'all, hey, welcome to another episode of the Sacred and Profane Podcast. What's up, fam? Fresh from that last quantum leap. I've been jumping through portals like a mofo, but y'all already know how I roll. So here we are back again. It's been so long. Now, I don't know about that, but it has been a minute, right? It's all good. I feel like the entire collective has been shifting and moving through some really powerful portals. And yeah, so we're going to get some runes out here and then we're going to have a really special conversation. Then I've got some really exciting news. And yeah, it's going to be good. All right, what's this about? Let's get these runes out here for y'all. While I get the runes, this is a great time to remind you the Sacred and Profane Podcast is an 18 and older conversation. If you are not old enough, please, this is where you sign off and let the rest of us stay on. Also, if you are 18 years old or older, but you're not emotionally mature, this isn't for you either. Those are the prerequisites, requirements to listen to this conversation. You got to be 18. You got to be emotionally mature. Okay. The entire podcast is a trigger warning. This episode will be no different. The runes for you are Kaunaz. Kaunaz are fire or knowledge. Hagalaz, air, transformation. Ooh, Mannaz. Okay. Man, manifestation. But also the union. And then Jera, cycles or earth. Okay. Wow, we've got air, fire, and earth out here. Y'all, that's hot. All that's missing is water, but I don't know that it's missing because we've got the rune Mannaz here, which is it's like a relationship, but it's more of a manifestation. I don't know how to tell y'all about it. It's a rune. Y'all, you know what I'm saying? A lot of runes, well, we're not gonna get into runes, but let me just put it like this. This is clearly got something to do with manifesting. What I love is what we're going to talk about today is the divine union, and Mannaz, or the rune for man, is also it also means divine union or manifestation. Okay, but we're going to talk about shadow work and uncovering the divine union within. Okay, so this is actually a workshop that I did recently for the magical community. Uh, there was a what's that? It was a it was a fair, not quite a psychic fair, but it was like a magical market, enchanted mystic market. It was a magical market, and I definitely set up my booth, did tarot readings, sold some herbal tea. You guys know how I roll. But then I also spoke and did a workshop, and this is what it was about: shadow work, uncovering the divine union within. So the rune Mannaz is actually perfect here because it stands for divine union. Okay. So listen, y'all know me as the Shadow Queen, right? You guys know how I roll, what it is. If you don't, you'll find out. Okay. But the way that I like to do shadow work is I like to talk. I like to chop it up, which is why we have this podcast. Okay. Now, for those of you who are new to shadow work, new to the podcast, new to me, you're like, I don't know what the hell this is. Somebody just told me to listen to it. Look, welcome. Good for you. I appreciate that. Uh, to keep it simple, your shadow, this is according to Carl Jung, you know that that psychologist from back in the day. Your shadow is the part of you that you were taught to suppress when you were a child. Okay? That's like the oversimplified definition of what your shadow is. Okay? Now, oftentimes our shadow self will manifest by causing us to feel triggered by someone else's words or actions. Okay? And when we feel triggered by someone else's words or actions, we often experience like this inner tension and cognitive dissonance. And if we're not aware of what's happening, we will lash out, we will judge, we will do anything to resist that feeling of insecurity or not enoughness or too muchness that comes up when our shadow is triggered. Okay. Now, the challenge with that is, and I know for those of y'all who know what shadow work is, I think we know this, but some people don't know. It's a little bit of introduction. Shadow work is allowing those triggers to show you where those insecurities are and then actively addressing the insecurities rather than projecting them onto the people around you. Very powerful work. When we don't address our shadow, when we just keep projecting onto other people, the shadow becomes bigger than our personality. And we have the tendency to start to think that our shadow is our personality, even though it's not. And our shadow will start to undermine and sabotage our lives. And this can look like addictions, low self-esteem, mental illness, chronic illness, neurosis. All of this is like a repressed shadow. Okay. Now, religion, modern spirituality tend to focus on the love and light, but this is an imbalance. We've got to really also get that we're no different than a tree or a plant in our garden. We need both light and darkness to grow and thrive. We need both. Okay. So that being said, you got to have the light, but you can't get away from the shadow. See, whenever you have light, shadow is just going to follow naturally. That's just what's naturally going to be there. Okay. Now, the other part of our shadow is interesting. Jung called it your golden shadow. So, in other words, when we're taught to repress ourselves as a kid, you're too loud, you're lazy, you're not fast enough, slow down, whatever it is that we really internalize as children. And you gotta think, as a child, we hear things and we don't always have context for it. So we just make shit up with our little 3, 4, 5-year-old brains, and that becomes our shadow. So everyone's got a shadow. Everyone has one. Everyone has that part of them from their childhood they feel like it's too much or not enough, or if they just change it, everything will be perfect. Okay. What's also hidden in the shadows, and this is the cool part, is what Jung calls our golden shadow, or some of our most powerful gifts and talents. This can include our artistic or creative expression, our sexual expression, our competitive and innovative nature, and even our intuitive aptitudes. Okay, so I'm that person. So as a kid, uh, my spiritual gifts were like hardcore banging. They were just, my spiritual gifts were all over the place. And my family was like, what the hell is that? Right? So I learned pretty early on my spiritual gifts were not okay. Got to keep them to myself. Don't talk about Bruno. I was Bruno. I was Bruno in my family. Okay. So we don't talk about Bruno. And my family very much was that way with me. I could be seen but not heard because I was Bruno. I know Bruno actually wasn't even seen, but I was predicting things as a kid. I was seeing things that other people weren't seeing as a child. And this was really uncomfortable for the adults because kids shouldn't talk like that. Kids shouldn't know that kind of stuff. Kids shouldn't be involved in that. But I was a psychic. I was a tiny little psychic thing. So what the hell do I know? I'm just telling you what I see. I'm telling you what I know. Okay. It took me 30 years of shadow work to get that those very same psychic gifts that were demonized and villainized as a child were actually a core part of my gifts and talents and my purpose for being here. This is crucial. That's what we're talking about in this episode of Sacred and Profane, is when you really dig into your shadow, you're going to find not just the parts of you that you're ashamed of that you need to integrate, you're also going to find the parts of you that could possibly make you a crap ton of money if you integrate them too. Now, I know we don't often talk about shadow work in this regard, but I'm going to take it there because I really want people to begin to get, you don't, you don't want to leave your shadow out there on its own. You want to integrate that person, that part of you. That shadow contains valuable information about yourself and the world around you. If you will go discover what's underneath those insecurities and fears and stigmas and triggers, you might find the very thing that changes your life, right? You know, I think, what's coming up for me now is, what's that man's name? Y'all gonna laugh when I say it because I just remembered it. Bill Gates. Yes, I did forget his name for a minute, and that's okay. Him and Steve Jobs, y'all know the story. They met in college and had an idea and dropped out. Well, it, the average parent is not going to be okay with their kid dropping out. And I can only imagine that Steve and Bill both dealt with some type of shadow around that, some type of shame of, oh my God, we dropped out, da 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 da, da. But they kept going. They didn't stop just because maybe they were being laughed at. They didn't stop because their parents were like, what the hell? Like they didn't stop. They just kept going. They really believed in something. But do you know the immense amount of shadow work that it takes to do that? That it takes to go against the grain, against the flow, against the norm, and stand on what you believe in. That's shadow work. So by doing shadow work, we can learn, if we want to, that every single emotion and wound that we possess has a gift for us. Every single one. I think this is why Christ says, don't judge. Judge not, lest you be judged. Okay. Uh, Listen, shadow work is at heart about developing self-awareness and ultimately self-acceptance and compassion. So shadow work can be both therapy and spiritual development. It's both and. Okay, so typically back in the day, shadow work, you do it with a shaman, somebody like me who could walk you through it, who could help you to get past those sticky spaces where you're like, no, I really am a crappy person. Uh, you have somebody there going, no, you're doing great. Keep going. No, you're doing great. For the people in my life on a daily basis that I support through their shadow work, I'm telling you, they will tell you it is invaluable to have somebody there holding your hand and cheering you on. Okay. Carl Jung says to confront a person with his own shadow is to show him his own light. And I believe that. Okay. So why are we even talking about this right now? We're talking about this right now because our current modern paradigm has left us present to our shadows as individuals, as a group, and as community. Okay. So I don't care what country you live in, what language you speak, what you believe in, none of that fucking matters for this conversation. What we're talking about in this conversation is we have a collective shadow, a group shadow, and an individual shadow. What do you mean? Well, I'll use myself as an example. 45 years old, born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1980. I've got dark mocha colored skin. I'm 130 pounds and I'm 5'8". Okay. I was raised in a house that was very religious. It wasn't spiritual back then, it was religion. So my shadows are very closely linked to the context that I grew up in. So because I grew up in a very religious household, my shadows have a lot to do with my sexuality, my spiritual beliefs, and that includes money and love, right? As well as how I view others. Because I was raised in an evangelical setting, okay, which had me look to, uh, well, I didn't. That's a whole, that's my shadow. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I was raised to look at other non-Christians or non-believers as different than me, as people who needed help because they weren't like me. Okay. And so as a kid, Christianity occurred for me as some type of exclusive club. Now, I got to tell you, it just didn't vibe with me. As a kid, I didn't vibe with it. I really wasn't into out, let's go tell everybody that they're bad and they need to come over here if they want to be good. I didn't like it. So I didn't do it. I didn't get into it. But what that means is my shadow was triggered very early on, very early on. I got kicked out of Sunday school for the first time when I was 8 years old, the second time at 16. I may have shared that with you guys already. I mean, 8 years old, my shadow is triggered because I'm the only kid sitting in the hallway at Sunday school. And all I did was raise my hand and ask a question. But the Sunday school teacher told me I was wrong and to get out. Boom, shadow. And the shadow that formed is you can't ask questions. Don't ask questions now. If you ask questions, you'll get kicked out. Like, shh, you be quiet. And as I grew up in my home, my parents would say, God, you talk so much. Can you just be quiet? I heard that so much. Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, until I became a quiet person. Baby, I'm an Aries, Gemini rising, Leo moon. There is nothing quiet about me. My energy is loud. My aura is huge. My personality is popping. Okay. But that shadow got triggered, suppressed over decades until, I'm quiet. What that looked like in everyday life was I was living a really small life riddled with depression and anxiety. No expression, no outlet, no creativity, none of it. I think I shared at some point. I was scared. Listen, I was convinced the only prostitutes wore red nail polish. That's how intense and extreme it was. If you know me now, you're laughing because you know I'm the red nail, red lip lady. But most of my life, I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. That was for a certain type of woman. Shadow. Now, fast forward after, decades of shadow work, boy, try shutting me up now. I can finally own my energy, own my personality, own my aura, and do it responsibly. My energy is huge. I'm constantly managing myself. That's shadow work. I don't repress my energy. I don't apologize for my energy. I manage it. It's my energy to manage. It's not to be hidden. It's to be shared at the appropriate time, in the appropriate ways, the appropriate people, in the appropriate places. There's a difference, yeah? It's not just, oh, just be quiet. No, 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 no. I am here to speak up. And I'm here to speak up about things that don't work for us. Okay. Now, I just mentioned that this is a workshop that I did at an event. A huge part of my purpose is to speak, is to be heard. I'm an oracle, so in that regard, it makes sense that my shadow would be around being heard, being seen, being understood. The benefits of shadow work for me have been in just huge, huge, huge. I can now have a healthy relationship with myself, so I can have a healthy relationship with anybody now. I know my truth and I can speak my truth responsibly. I can practice what some people call nonviolent communication, or what some of you know as the new world of communication. I can practice it. I can live it. Shadow work. Shadow work has increased my capacity to deal with myself, to deal with my triggers, to deal with being uncomfortable. Shadow work has increased my capacity to be responsible and accountable in my life. That is, shadow work has expanded my capacity to respond, my ability to respond, and deepened my ability to account for what is and isn't happening in my experience. Accountability, responsibility. Okay. This is all shadow work. Now, there's different types of shadow work, right? There's talk therapy. Been there, did that. Love it. There's group work. Some of you've done some group coaching. Love that. Done some group work. Love that. And group work can be anything from workshops, seminars, mastermind, 12 step. That's all group work. Shadow work at the group level. I love it. There's individual shadow work. You might take a journal, a candle, light your candle, sit down and write out what you're feeling, what you experience. That's shadow work. Listen, some of my favorite shadow work is moving my body, allowing myself on a daily basis to get present to my body and feel where energy is not flowing. Where is energy stagnant? Where does it feel stuck? And then not just moving my body, but also getting present to what is my body telling me? When I move that part of my body, do I think of a person? Do I think of a situation? Is something triggered when I move that part of my body? That's shadow work. We can take shadow work on physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I highly recommend you take your shadow work on at all these levels. You know, I'm going to always advocate for holistic health, holistic healing, holistic shadow work. Yeah. So, why? Why would you do shadow work? Well, it's like your best life. Your best life is on the other side of the shadow because it's not just laying to rest those demons that you've been wrestling with. Again, it's also discovering these hidden gifts and talents that were suppressed underneath, right? Yeah. One of, I think, the most pivotal rewards for doing shadow work that we're specifically touching on in this episode is the divine union. That is discovering the divine masculine and the divine feminine within you because you have both. But you really can't get at both until you do shadow work. You're really just kind of left with, I think I'm this because when I look in the mirror, I see that. So that means I'm this. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes we are in our interpersonal relationships looking for the other people to provide something to us that only we can provide to ourselves. But our only access to that truth is shadow work. And so, before we get into shadow work, it really may occur for us that our partner or our mom or our colleague or our child or whomever we are experiencing dissonance with is bothering us. They're the blame. If they would change, things would be better. I mean, it really looks like that sometimes. It really does. I mean, it just does. It's just not accurate. What's accurate is our triggers are triggering their triggers, but it's not their fault any more than it's our fault. What wants to happen in those moments is a moment gets taken. We stop and we go, what's actually going on here? What's really going on here? Now, if we don't do this by default, we can't help it. We will blame the other person. You don't have a choice. Please hear that very clearly. If you don't do your shadow work, you don't have a choice but to project and blame your shadow onto the next person. To be triggered and not project and blame is shadow work. Okay. So if you're not doing shadow work, the only thing you can be doing is projecting and blaming. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. It's really easy. But let's go back to this divine union within because something magical is available, which is why we're even talking about it. So when you think about masculine and feminine energies coming together, listen, I know what you may be thinking about. And that might be what I'm talking about, but we don't know for sure. Let's find out. Okay. What I'm talking about is when you put masculine and feminine energy together, what happens is something gets created. A spark is ignited and something is now created that wasn't there before. Now imagine having access to that type of generative, creative power ongoingly in your life. That's right. You wouldn't get bored. You'd always have a fresh, innovative idea. There'd always be something for you to give your time and attention to that fulfills you. I know that sounds far fetched, but that is what happens. When you ignite the spark between the feminine and the masculine within, you are igniting a spark of self love. Full stop. Once you light the flame of self-love, baby, it's like you become a furnace, a generator of creativity, a powerhouse of creativity. People ask me all the time, how do you do all this? You got the podcast, you do this, you do that, you got kids. How do you do it all? I love myself. I love myself. And so there's this creative spark that forever wants to be tended and flamed and shared, right? Like enhanced and shared. It wants to be shared. Now, if you don't already have some type of tool to support your shadow work, jump on my website, www.nestpowergrace.com. Scroll down on that home page, you'll see a link to a shadow work journal. It's digital. Click it, download it. The link was broken, I just fixed it. Okay? Download it. If you are like, I don't want a digital one, I want something different. I have hard copies of a shadow work journal. Okay. $2 for the book plus shipping. Let me know. I'll get it to you. How do you let me know, right? Jump on my website. There is a contact page. Contact me on the website. Just get on my website, contact and say, I want the hardcover. I want this. No, it's a soft cover book, but you want the hard copy of the Shadowwork book. The book is $2 and you'll pay shipping. Okay. And I do book rate shipping, so shipping is going to be $5. To give you an idea. All right. So $7. You can have a book in your hand, or if you don't need all that and free is your favorite price, get on my website and download it for free. Okay. My tip for you, if you're new to shadow work, is to get yourself a tea light. Don't get a big tea light, get a little tea light. Set aside some time, make yourself your favorite drink, tea, water, Sprite. I don't know what you're doing. I'm doing San Pellegrino and hot chocolate today. But and then light your tea light and then do your shadow work. And when the tea light goes out, that's it for the day. That's it. You did it. Shadow work doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be scary. You can put some structure around it. Okay. It is a practice. Shadow work is a practice. It's not a one and done. Okay. Now, the divine union within. Oh my gosh. When you ignite this creative power deep inside of you, one of the first things that's going to happen is you're going to be extremely in touch with your desires, very much in touch with your desires. Almost like, it's not exactly, but it is almost like everything that you kind of like repressing your shadow kept you from is going to come up to play, right? Like once you let your shadow free, integrate it with the rest of you. And again, you're not going to get rid of your shadow. You're just going to integrate it. Okay. Once you integrate your shadow, you really are going to be ready to do something now. You're gonna be like, no, now I want to do something. I want to go play. That's how it is for me. I want to go play. So, so great. When I was a kid, my life was pretty serious. I have experienced a lot of trauma, you guys, a lot of trauma. I don't talk about it. So those of you who know me don't really know my trauma stories because there's so many. I mean, there's just so many. I'll tell you one right now that I don't think I've shared with anybody publicly. But when I was 5, I was in the car with my stepfather, and my stepmom had we'd gone to the store, and we were stopping at the gas station so she could buy cigarettes before we went home. And it's 1985, so she left us in the car and ran inside, pulled up to the gas station and left us in the car so she could run and buy her cigarettes, right? Well, this guy at the gas station was watching the whole thing. He watched. And as soon as she went inside, he came over to the car. You know, we had the window rolled down. You know how kids are. He came over to the car, stuck a gun in my face. I'm 5 years old. I said, "Give me your mom's purse, kid," because she left her purse in the front seat. She just took her wallet in to get the cigarette. Give me your mom's purse, kid. Now, y'all, y'all, y'all. What do you think I did as a 5-year-old? Nope, I did not give him the purse. I said, "It's not your purse." That's what I said. I was looking at the gun, and I said, "That's not your purse." Now, my brother is 8 years old. He's 3 years older than me, so he's got a little bit more sense, thank goodness. You know what my brother said? "Give him the purse." That's what my brother said. My brother had the right answer, by the way. But I'm 5 years old, so nobody expects me to have the right answer, do they? I hope not, because I didn't. So I looked at my brother and I said, "No, it's not his purse." Don't y'all love kids? It was simple for me, but it's not his. And I just kept thinking, no, because if I give him mom's purse and she comes back, she's gonna be mad. I'm 5 years old. That's what I got. Finally, my brother reaches across me because the guy's got the gun in my face through the window, and I'm just sitting there like, no, dude, you're not getting the fucking purse. You give a fuck what's going on, all right? Look, not too many things have changed, I guess, right? So my brother reaches up, he unbuckles, reaches up into the front seat, grabs mom's purse, chucks it out the window at the man, and the man hauls ass and runs away. Not a minute later, here comes mom, stepmom out the store. She gets in the car. We don't say anything because I'm just like, well, this is not good. Of course, she goes to put her wallet in the purse, and guess what? There's no purse. So she turns around and says, "Where's my purse?" I said, "The man with the gun took it." She said, "What?" I said, "The man had a gun. He came and took the purse." My brother says, "Yeah, well, she almost didn't give it to him." My stepmom sits there for a moment and she takes it all in. She goes, "There was a man with a gun and he came and took the purse." We're like, "Yeah." She freaks out. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry I left you guys in here like that. I'm so sorry. It's so dangerous. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Okay. Now look, she had her wallet. That's what she took to get the cigarette. So all he got was her purse. What, peppermints, tissues, lipstick, and lotion? You know what I'm saying? That's all he got. Did I mention that as a kid, I had a thing about my mouth? I'm 45 and I know I got a slick mouth. But now my shadow's integrated and I have this podcast called the Sacred and Profane. Right? I was always this person, always willing to say out loud what there is to be said. You know, I got kicked out of Sunday school when I was 8 because the Sunday school teacher was talking about how if you don't believe in the Christian God, you're going to go to hell. And I raised my little 8-year-old hand and I said, "Well, hold on a moment. That don't feel right." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, what if there's kids? Do they have to go to hell too?" And she said, "Yeah, everybody who doesn't believe in our God goes to hell." And I said, "No." That's all I said was no, just like that, no. And she says, "Excuse me?" I said, "No, that's not right." And she said, "What are you saying?" And I said, "No, because kids have to do, this is what I said at 8 years old, kids have to do what their parents tell them. And why would God punish a child for being obedient to their parents? God says we have to be obedient to our parents. So if our parents tell us to go to synagogue or mosque or whatever y'all are saying is wrong, then God is wrong." Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had to leave that room immediately. Yeah, and sit in the hallway. But I've always been this person. Now with the shadow integrated, I know myself as a truth teller, as someone who can and will have difficult conversations, conversations that will forward the action, that will move the ball down the court, so to speak. conversations that matter, conversations that connect, conversations that unconceal, and ultimately conversations that heal. This is who I am. From 40 years ago, telling a guy with a gun in my face, "Hey, that ain't your purse. You can't have it," to an 8-year-old saying, "Nah, that ain't it. Whatever God you're talking to, that ain't the one." Right? That ain't it. To the woman sitting here now telling you, listen, if you want to live a life that you love, if you want to actually do what you came here to do, fulfill your purpose, find meaning in life, experience life on your terms, it's shadow work. It's shadow work. You get to go back into your childhood. You get to find those moments where society, your parents, whatever, tried to tell you you were too much or not enough. And you get to reclaim those pieces and parts for yourself. You get to discover the magic that you were then that you still are now. It's just buried underneath your job, your schedule, your bills, all that shit. And then when you discover that shadow and you integrate it, that is, you love it anyway, right? Like I had to learn to love that kid who said, "That's not your purse." I had to learn to love the little girl who was sitting out in the hallway with her knees bunched up under her chin because she was the only kid in the hallway because she said, "No, that ain't God. I don't know who you listening to, but that ain't it." While all the adults were walking by like, "Why is that girl in the hallway?" The shame, the embarrassment around it. Do you understand? The whispers that go to being different, not following the crowd. Once I integrated that, then I could really own my role as a truth teller. Then I could really embrace, you know what? I tell the truth, so I might not ever be popular, which is exactly what I needed to make it to where we are now, the age of Aquarius, where truth tellers are about to take center stage. Because now we want the truth, don't we? Yeah. See, now we want the truth. We didn't want the truth in the 80s. We want the truth now. We didn't want the truth in the 90s. We want the truth now. Hell, we didn't want the truth in the early 2000s, but we want the truth now. All of that time was perfect for me. It gave me time to integrate my shadow as a truth teller, as an oracle, the Most High God. So I'm encouraging you to go do your shadow work. Find those pieces and parts of yourself that you judged and cast aside and suppressed and you try to forget and hide and hope nobody ever finds out about. Find it, integrate it. You might be listening to my example like, I don't know, mine isn't like that. Don't worry, I got more. We talked about the Matrix, right? And I tell you, the Matrix is ran by lust. And of the seven deadly sins, lust was the one that I really struggled with. Not just me, ancestrally. Okay, so my bloodline, our shadow was lust. And as a generational curse breaker for my bloodline, oh boy, did I get an extra dosage. I got a healthy heap of lust to deal with. Okay, now let me tell you, even though the Matrix is ran by lust, there's so many stories around lust, right? Like women can do this, men can do this, women can't do that, but men can do. We have all these stories around our sex and sexuality. And by the way, that my particular penchant of the deadly sins with lust is exactly what gives us the Sacred and Profane podcast. It's exactly what gives me the sacred exchange, the divine initiation, all these transformational programs I have, all these transformational conversations that I have around sex and death and all the taboos. That's because integrated lust. The reason I can speak to you about sex and sexuality and have it be so freeing, so liberating, and so activating is because I integrated lust. It's a shadow. It- for some, it's just a cheap version of the real thing, which is desire. Okay. But now I can own it. Now I can own the effect that I have on others because I've integrated lust. When I was a child, I had sexual experiences at an early age. Society does not care for that. I was speaking with someone today, another facilitator of sacred sexuality, and we were talking about, how as a child, my experience was one of pleasure. It wasn't until the adults, air quote, caught us that I realized I was supposed to be feeling ashamed. And then I took that shame on and I had to deal with it in my sexuality. And let me tell you, that shame did more damage to my sexuality than that sexual encounter at 5 years old ever did. Because I was touched by another child. Okay. That's my story. We all have our story. But the shame led to a shadow that I still had to unpack because it showed up in every single relationship, as you can imagine, until I unpacked it, right? I mean, this is just how it goes. How it goes. You guys can hear my phone thinking confirmation in the background. So we all have a shadow. Some of us have a shadow around greed, gluttony, wrath, pride. You got your version, you got your flavor. Flavor Flays out here. You got yours. You got yours. I got mine. Your goal is to integrate it. Integrate it. Over the course of my path, boy, have I practiced abstinence, celibacy, all of it. And all of it with the intention of integrating less and empowering my experience. Now, what's wild about the integration, I'm a sexy ass motherfucker, and all I do is wear t-shirt and jeans. I don't have big breasts. There's really nothing to show off. I don't have a big ass. There's really nothing to shake. But there's something about my aura, something about my energy, something about my vibe. It reeks of seduction. It reeks of sex. I own that now. I used to try to dress baggy and androgynous like it was going to hide my aura. It didn't. I was loose as a goose wearing baggy clothes. And that's when I had to get, it's not about the clothes I'm wearing. This isn't my clothing. And I know we really like to do that to women. But what were you wearing? But what did you have on? No, I've never worn what we would call sexy clothes because I just don't have that kind of, I mean, I'm kind of a tall, slim build. Sexy clothes are usually, they look better on more voluptuous figures. I don't have voluptuosity. I just made that word up. It's voluptuousness. I don't have that. My body absolutely was more fit for androgyny, especially younger, right? But it didn't matter because my shadow was so, so predicated on lust that it was just in my aura. And now with lust integrated, it occurs for me and the people around me is something other than lust, right? It occurs as being activated. Men and women are like, boy, I just get so activated and aroused when I'm around you. And it's not, and people are quick to say, it's not, I'm not coming on to you. I just want you to know I feel something in my body when I'm around you. I love that because that lets me know that lust has been integrated. The people around me that are being impacted are clear enough, they're aware enough that what's happening isn't sexual. You see what I mean? They're having activation in their sexual center. They feel a kundalini awakening, but because lust is integrated where I am, they are left clear where they are that it's not about sex. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm going to end this podcast here. I'm going to give you a little news, but before I do, I want to say, you know, this is the work for you to do. Go get those shadows, baby. Go dig them out. This is the winter time where I am anyway. I'm in the I'm in the central part of the United States these days. Uh, so it's cold where I am. I don't have blizzard. A lot of my friends do have blizzard. It's not snow, but it is cold here. Yeah. So this is a great time, especially in the darkness here in the Northern Hemisphere. Go do your shadow work. This is the time of year to do your shadow work. This is what the winter is for. What the winter is for. Nature's doing her shadow work right now. I mean, you do it too, okay? And again, if you need help, you need support, reach out, get on the website, reach out, let me know how I can support you, okay? All right. Now for the news. I'm super excited, you guys. We're gonna have a I think she'll be a guest. I don't know. So I've got Sharon Marie Scott lined up to come do a podcast episode with us this month in a couple weeks. She'll be on with me. And right now, we think we're just going to kind of flow. So I think Sharon will be with us for more than one episode, but for however long we share the conversation, it's going to be juicy and it's going to be good. Okay. So Sharon Marie Scott is an erotic teacher. She embodies the sacred mysteries of, what we call Tantra, but I call it sacred sexuality. She is a fellow sister of the temple, a high priestess of this work, and I'm super, super excited to have her join us in the Sacred and Profane podcast. Okay, you can look her up, Sharon Marie Scott. You can Google her, find her on social media. She'll be at the Tantra Fest in Austin this month. But yeah, I'm excited to bring her in, bring her on board, and really expand our conversation around what's possible when we own our sexuality, what's possible when we dig into the things that have traditionally been considered profane, but they really are sacred. Those of you who know me and follow my work know that sacred sexuality, that's my jam. That's my jam. So I'm excited to begin to bring other voices in so we can expand the container and deepen the conversation around this. Okay. Uh, those episodes with Sharon are going to be major trigger warnings. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to go there. Incest, assault. We're going to go there. Trigger warning after trigger warning. It's all designed to get you into your shadow work, get you looking at yourself in a whole new way, and ultimately leave you feeling whole and complete. Leave you in love with yourself, right? You guys know that's always, always, always the goal. How can you fall even deeper in love with yourself? That's what shadow work is for. As we move through these winter months, I encourage you, stay connected. If you're not a part of a community uh, in person, then please find an online community to join. I've got one. There's several out there. Use your discernment. Find one that works for you, but get connected. Don't be out here alone. Do not isolate and try to do shadow work. Put yourself in a community that's safe and sacred and do your shadow work. Okay? All right, you guys, I'm going to leave it here. As a reminder, where can you find me? You can find me on YouTube. I'm there almost every day doing tarot readings for the collective, so come on down. You can absolutely find me right here on the Sacred and Profane Podcast. New one drops every week or every other week, roughly, depending on how the spirit moves, right? You can find me in person if you're fortunate enough to catch me at an event. If you want to know what events I will be at, that is on my website. Just go to my website, and there's an event right there on the front page. It's like an event calendar. Lets you know what I have coming up, where you can find me, where you can work with me, all that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. Yeah, this is it for now, you guys. This was like, it seemed innocent enough, but we did a lot. We went a lot of places here. Hope that you're able to keep up. Hope that you're able to find yourself somewhere in what I shared in this episode. And I also hope that you are prepared to dive deep, even deeper in this next episode that we have coming up. Okay. All right. Hey, in between now and the next podcast episode, trust your path, your process, and your purpose. Peace.